I'm Hannah Moore, CFP, a practicing financial planner and educator. I'm on a mission to change the way people think and talk about money. Let's get started. My husband and I have recently been looking at some major purchases in our life, and they are all coming at one time. And so I want to share a little bit behind the scenes of kind of how I'm approaching it, how we're approaching it, and thinking through this idea of how do we prioritize all these large expenses that are coming through? How do we say what we're going to be paying for in cash? How do we prioritize and looking at lending options right now? What does this look like? So let me give you guys a little bit of background. You might not be able to see if you're watching this video or listening to this. You might not know that I am at 35 weeks pregnant with our third baby, and we need a new car. We have a tiny little car. I am not sure if we can fit 3 car seats in the back seat, and it is time for us to upgrade to the van. So we have known that this is going to be in our pathway for a long time, but I'm recording this in 2022, and there is a chip shortage that is making purchasing a van really difficult right now. And so that is one of our expenses that we're facing, is this van. Now, the question of do we buy used, new, all of these things are really coming to a head for us, and talking through what this looks like. So we have the van choice. I'm going to come back to this for just a second, but I want you to know the other pieces. The next piece is we need to do some outside renovations on our home. And so this is going to be replacing our siding on our house. We were planning on doing this next year, but our city has given us a notice that we need to do this much sooner. And so we are now looking at what does this look like? A decision that we thought we were going to have to make in a year or two, we're having to make this year. So it's a little bit embarrassing that the city's already noticing it. But it is what it is. And so our hand is being forced a little bit in how that we need to do some of these home repairs. And then the third piece is our air conditioning unit. We had some issues with it. It was making some noises, and we brought an air conditioning tech out there to look at it. And she didn't even want to touch it because she was like, I'm not sure this is safe. You just need a whole new system. And so now we're having these 3 big pieces to juggle of we need a new van, we need to fix the outside of our house, and we need a new air conditioning unit. So I want to talk you through kind of how we're thinking about this and processing it, because we're having a lot of conversations around what's important to us and how do we do this, and should we be taking out loans? Should we be waiting to pay for cash? Can we wait to pay for cash for all this? And so it's been really interesting just watching ourselves on this. So the first thing is it's important to prioritize what's important. Now, again, like you saw in our situation, I feel like our hand is getting played a lot in these situations where we're being forced to make decisions about these kind of high ticket items that we have, right? Like that. And again, there are certainly people who could sit here and say, Hannah, you can fit 3 car seats in the back of your car. Like you can be fine. But we don't want to. That's not, we want to have that extra space. We want to be able to buy a car, in a way that does that, for the AC side of it, it's still working, fingers crossed. But we do know that it's something that we need to get replaced. And then our siding, we're looking at these home projects. And when we were looking at what we wanted to do in a year or two, it wasn't just, the pieces that we needed to replace. It was, we wanted to do even more. Right. And so we've been having to have these conversations about what is it that we want and how do we prioritize it. Now, I'll tell you, with how I grew up, money was tight. And so it was always, how much can I buy as cheap as I can buy it? And that is a good narrative. It's helped me through a lot of really tight situations in life. But where we are today is not where that's been, right? It's a money script that served me very, very well in my life, but is not necessarily going to serve me well in this next phase of my life. And again, this is where we're kind of getting into some of where personal finance gets really personal, right? Of saying, what is it that we want with our lives, with our situations, with things like that. So let's walk through each of these. So I'm going to walk through kind of how we're making our decisions on this, but I want to touch back on something important. We can make decisions to not spend the absolute least amount that we can spend because I know that we have foundational pieces of our financial plan in order. So I know that my husband and I we have a fully funded emergency fund. I know that if something bad were to happen, we are okay financially. So that puts me immediately in an advantageous position where I wasn't in that position before. Again, this is where you have to, when you hear advice on personal finances, where you have to be able to nuance it down to your situation. If we didn't have a fully funded emergency fund, our decisions would look different, right? And that's something really, really important to note as you guys are listening to this, as you guys are hearing financial advice. That is a place where that would change some of our decisions here. We know that we have a financial plan in place. We know that if we save X number of dollars a month till the age of 65, that we never have to worry about money again. That's what our projections are show us for us. And we know that in our current spending, like that we are matching those numbers. So I know that my retirement isn't at risk for this. I know that we've set up the insurance pieces that are really, really important and critical for us. That we have, if I was to get hit by a bus tomorrow, that my family's taken care of, that they have the full life insurance that they need in order to maintain their lifestyle. Certainly through my girls or my kids, I have 2 girls and a boy. So I say girls all the time now, and I'm gonna have to switch that to kids. To my girls and my kids throughout like their time at home, but then also that I know that my husband's going to be taken care of should something happen to me, and vice versa. I know that if something happens to him, we are going to be financially secure. We're not going to have to worry about that. I know I have disability insurance. I know I have these protection pieces in my financial plan. If I did not have those protection pieces in my financial plan, again, my decisions would be different because I would know that I would need to do those first before I could have confidence to be spending more money on decisions that may have frankly feel luxurious sometimes. So again, know that those foundational pieces for us in this example, they are in place, but that's going to be influencing, if you're thinking about all these decisions as well, that's going to be influencing your decisions as well. Okay, so when we're looking at this, we really looked at our situation of saying, okay, how much money do we have, right? How much cash do we have? How can we pull from different places? And we have, multiple businesses that we can pull from. We have our savings, and we also have loans. And so part of this is looking really pragmatically at what are our options? Like truly, like do we have cash? Do we have loans? Should we be investing our money? I will tell you one of the most painful things for me right now as I'm recording this, the stock market is down like 25% this year. And I'm like, this is the best time to be putting this money into the stock market. It actually is like killing me that we're going to be like taking this money and not put it in the stock market and actually be putting it into our van, our home, our air conditioning unit. But it's like I tell my clients all the time, our lives have to dictate where our money goes versus just trying to make more money. And that's really, it can be a hard pill to swallow. But that is something that, again, I'm a financial planner. I'm help clients invest. So like that's something that I see that I'm like, shoot, I wish we could wait 2 or 3 more years, but this baby's coming in less than 5 weeks. Hopefully. And like, we're going to need a van. The city is going to start finding us if we don't fix this, and our air conditioning is going to break. And we live in the Dallas area, and y'all, I cannot go a summer without air conditioning. So all of these things feel like there is a sense of urgency around it. So as we're going through this decision filter, I'm thinking through what are our options. We have a certain amount of cash that we have, and then I'm pragmatically looking at the different types of loans. Now, one of the other interesting things is interest rates are going up right now. And so we're looking at, okay, so what does that look like? How does that influence our buying power in all these pieces? So I know that I can get a loan for a car. I know I can. Because that's just kind of how cars are financed. So that's easy access to a loan for us. I look at, for our home, the outside of our home that we're going to be doing, we could go and get a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit. We could refinance part of our house. We could do some aspects like that, but it's a lot more difficult. We're going to have to, I don't want to give up my low mortgage payment or my low interest rate on my home right now. So we're not, refinancing is off the table for that purpose. I don't really want to get a HELOC because it's going to be a variable rate of interest. I don't want to go through the hassle of a HELOC, of having to get my home appraised, having to get things approved, things like that. Like I just don't want to fuss with that when I know that I have cash. So already when I'm seeing this, I'm already looking at, Okay, so we have the car loan, and we have a loan for our house. Again, I haven't researched fully the home equity line of credits, but I know those are variable rates, and so with interest rates going up, I'm a little bit cautious to go and take one out because I know those payments would be going up versus locking in a rate right now. And so, so for me, I'm leaning against doing a loan for our home exterior that needs to be done. And then I look at the air conditioning unit, and this is one that we're still kind of exploring our options on. On the website, they had said that they had 0% financing for a year. Now we called them up and we learned that that wasn't true, but we're exploring options on that. There's a lot of like home appliance places where they will give you 0% loan for 12 or 18 months. And if you remember back to our initial kind of conversation, we were already planning on spending a lot of this money for some of our home renovations. We knew a van was coming. So we've already been saving for some of these things. We just didn't know that we needed them right now or relatively quickly. And so it's been interesting thinking through that. So when I think of like the different places to take money out or how we're going to be financing this, is we're likely to be using our pot of cash that we have. And so we've gotten really clear about how much money it is that we can put towards these three options right now. How we're going to be allocating that money is we're going to be likely putting cash, as much cash as we can, or all of the cash that we can, towards our home. So that's put constraints on that of saying, here's how much we are willing to invest into our home, right? We saw the contractor earlier this week, and we're like, here's our maximum budget. We can't go over. I know very few projects that don't go over budget on renovations, but making that really clear of what that looks like. Our next would be if we can find a 0% financing option. And again, I don't know if we're going to be able to, but that would give us some of that breathing room to say like, hey, we were already on the pathway to saving for these things. We can do that, and that's going to be okay. And then knowing that the car loan is an easy option for us. We know that it's going to be, they're not having to appraise our home. They're not having to do anything like that. It's really tied to the car, and there's an easy way to do that. And so that's kind of how we're processing thinking through this. Really just pragmatically looking at, what are the three priorities, and then making decisions based on that. One of the things, also is just what do we need? And I touched on this a little bit earlier, and this is really where it's been interesting, right? I mentioned this mindset of before it would be like, how can we make this as cheap as we can? How can we make this, should my husband and I be outside like scraping the siding of our house and repainting it and doing all the work ourselves? And there's been a time in life, and there very likely will be another time in my life where that's an option for us to do it. But right now, I'm 35 weeks pregnant. We have 2 small children. My husband's working as well. And we just don't have the time or capacity for this. And I think that's okay. It's recognizing what is it that we need our money to do for us today? What is the reality of our situation? And then making those decisions based on that. So that is some of the nuance of kind of how we're thinking about this. Some of the popular financial advice would be pay everything in cash. And perhaps for some people that is a good option, and that's something to prioritize. But for us, we could buy a beater van. We really could. It's hard because those prices are so high right now, but we want something that's going to last us. When we were talking about it, we referenced it as our 10-year van. Our van that we're going to have for 10 years, and that changes the perspective of it. We don't want to be fussing with repairs. We don't want to be doing some of that work that would be needed for the upkeep on the van and our cars. And when we look at the car market is crazy right now. And buying new, I never thought in my life I'd buy a new car, and here I am looking at possibly buying a new van. But again, it's all about weighing these things about what's important to us. And so just wanted to kind of give you guys an insight into how we're thinking about some of these more complicated, maybe it is complicated, ways of how do we balance these different competing priorities in our life in order to make it all work, and make it all work when it all comes at once, right? Because ideally, we build out these financial plans for clients, and we're like, okay, and then this year you're going to do this, and then this year you're going to do this. And sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And Oftentimes it doesn't work that way, let's be real. And so, again, just wanted to kind of give you guys a framework for how we are thinking through this, that hopefully can help you as you're thinking through your decisions as well. So I hope that's helpful, and good luck as you guys are thinking through how you guys are navigating your finances as well. Thanks for listening to this episode of Everyday Money with Hannah Moore. If you like what you heard, subscribe and check out livewealthynow.com. We have a lot more resources to help you live wealthy now.